A company just spent millions migrating their core banking app to the cloud. 6 months later, the CFO discovers the monthly cloud bill is triple their on-prem cost. Why? They chose the wrong migration strategy. One simple decision you'll never make after this video. Today we're breaking down the 6 R's of cloud migration: Rehost, Replatform, Refactor, Repurchase, Retire, and Retain, so you can move applications without blowing up the budget. A company moved their critical enterprise resource planning (ERP) system to the cloud, and the bill tripled. That's the price of a wrong migration strategy. By the end of this video, you'll be able to define the 6 R's, pick the right approach for any application, and avoid the budget-wrecking mistakes that waste millions. Last part, we locked down cloud environments, firewalls, identity, encryption. Now in part 11 of the IT Fundamentals Masterclass, we're moving from security to movement. By the end, you'll be able to evaluate any application and pick the right migration strategy, understand the real cost differences between Rehost and Refactor, and avoid the #1 reason cloud budgets explode. Let's break down the 6 R's. By the end of this video, you'll have a decision framework that instantly makes you sound like you've done this before. 3 concrete outcomes. First, you'll be able to look at any application and name the right migration strategy from the 6 R's. Second, you'll know the #1 post-migration bill shock trap and exactly how to avoid it. And third, you'll be ready for those interview scenarios hiring managers throw at cloud candidates. Let's lock those in. Without a blueprint, that ERP disaster is what you get. A migration strategy is exactly that. Your blueprint for moving an application from on-prem, or even another cloud, to a new target environment. It's not just copy files. It's deciding how much you'll change the app, its architecture, or whether it even needs to exist anymore. Back in part 1, we covered NIST's cloud characteristics: on-demand self-service, rapid elasticity, and measured service, which together form the foundation that enables pay-per-use billing. A migration strategy determines how fast you actually tap into those benefits instead of just renting a VM that acts like your old server. Let's lock in the cost angle. Why can choosing Rehost for a legacy app cause your cloud bill to explode, even though it seems cheap up front? Pause. It's because Rehost often leads to over-provisioning. You pay for idle VMs that are sized for peak comfort, while you also remain responsible for OS patches and backups, adding operational overhead. Let's lock in the core concept before we dive into the specific strategies. Recall, what exactly is a migration strategy, and why does picking the wrong one cause your cloud bill to explode? Rehost looks cheap up front, but here's the trap. A virtual machine that runs around the clock at low utilization still burns the full instance price. Without right sizing, a server you expected to cost a couple $100 a month could quickly drain far more. Your cloud provider offers cost recommendations to check for over-provisioning after migration. Use them. And don't forget, because you're still on IaaS, your team owns the OS, the patches, the backups. Rehost is a first-date option. If you plan to stay on the platform long-term, you'll want to move beyond it. Let's lock in what we've covered. This ties directly back to the IaaS knowledge from part 2. You rehost your application onto EC2 instances. Who is responsible for patching the guest operating system? Pause and think. Typically, you are. With IaaS, you control and are responsible for the OS, middleware, and applications. The cloud provider handles the physical hardware and hypervisor. To avoid over-provisioning after migration, check your cloud provider's cost optimization recommendations. Picture this. Your DevOps team spends every third Saturday manually vacuuming a PostgreSQL database and applying security patches. That's where Replatform comes in. It means you lift the app, tinker with a few cloud-optimized changes, and shift it. The classic tweak? Trade your self-managed database for a managed service like Amazon RDS or Azure Database for PostgreSQL. The core application code stays the same, but you offload backups, patching, and failover to the provider. No full rewrite, yet you stop doing maintenance at 2 a.m. An e-commerce company runs PostgreSQL on a bare metal server in a colo rack. Patching, backup scripting, and connection tuning eat 15 hours a month. The DevOps team replatforms. They move the web app to Azure VMs, but swap the database for Azure Database for PostgreSQL Flexible Server. The app code barely changes, just a connection string update. Now the team gets automated backups, point-in-time restore, and they never have to compile a PostgreSQL extension at midnight again. Same online store, modernized backend, 15 hours a month reclaimed. Replatforming sounds safe, but a tiny oversight can cause a production outage faster than you can say rollback. Connection string changes are the #1 tripwire. One misconfigured port, and your app can't find the database. Managed services also come with hard limits on connections and storage, so you must test at production scale. And don't skip the failover drill. Flipping to a managed service doesn't guarantee it'll survive a real outage unless you forced one on purpose. Time to test your intuition. Look at this scenario and recall what you learned about IaaS versus PaaS. Then answer the question. Imagine you're the lead cloud architect for a company with 300 applications. Your CEO asks a simple question. Which migration strategy should we use? Here's the trick question. The correct answer is not Rehost. It's not Refactor. It depends on the application. One application might move perfectly with a simple lift and shift. Another might save hundreds of thousands of dollars if you redesign it. A third may be so outdated that it's cheaper to retire than migrate. That's the biggest mindset shift in cloud migration. You're not choosing one strategy for the migration. You're choosing the best strategy for each application. The next two strategies, Refactor and Repurchase, show how experienced cloud architects think beyond simply moving servers and start optimizing for long-term business value. Sometimes the biggest mistake isn't moving an application, it's moving the wrong architecture. Imagine a retail website built 15 years ago as one massive monolithic application. Every Black Friday, the entire application has to scale, even though only the checkout system is overloaded. That's expensive. Refactoring means redesigning the application to become cloud native. Instead of one giant application, you might build separate services for product catalog shopping, cart checkout, inventory, notifications. Now each service scales independently. AWS recommends that large migration projects usually begin with Rehost or Replatform, then selectively refactor the applications that deliver the greatest business value. Refactoring costs the most upfront, but it often delivers the greatest long-term scalability, resilience, and operational efficiency. A fintech company runs a single monolithic trading app that can't scale beyond a few hundred concurrent users. They refactor, splitting it into an order service, matching engine, and notification service, each running in its own Kubernetes pod. The refactor takes 6 months, but after launch, transaction latency drops sharply, and they pay only for the active pods. That's the payoff of cloud-native design. but only when the business can stomach the upfront complexity. Refactoring is powerful, but it's also a complexity tax you have to pay. The initial development cost can be far higher than a simple lift and shift. You'll need strong DevOps practices and a team comfortable with containers and orchestration. And because you're now dealing with a distributed system, bugs become harder to diagnose. AWS's own guidance: don't refactor everything at once. Rehost or replatform first, then gradually refactor the parts that deliver the most business value. Let's lock in the difference between tweaking the platform and tearing down the application. Recall your earlier container and serverless knowledge, and then decide. Repurchase means you stop managing an application entirely and replace it with a SaaS solution. The classic example: an on-prem CRM gets swapped for Salesforce. You're essentially buying a service, just like the SaaS model from Part 2. It's fast, low maintenance, and you never patch a server again. But watch out. That convenience comes with a risk of vendor lock-in and subscription costs that, over 3 years, can exceed your old on-prem total cost of ownership. When speed and simplicity matter more than customization, this is your go-to. A mid-market manufacturer built their own CRM a decade ago on a Windows server that's now end of life. The IT team spends 20% of every week just patching it and firefighting login issues. They crunch the numbers, ditch the on-prem monster, and repurchase with Salesforce Sales Cloud. 8 weeks later, the server's powered off forever. The sales team gets a slick mobile app, and the recurring server cost essentially vanishes. Repurchase isn't a one-click magic wand. The licensing math can sting. An on-prem CRM with a one-time license of $15,000 can quickly become a recurring SaaS bill of $30,000 a year once you add per-user fees. And don't forget the weeks of data scrubbing, broken integrations, and user retraining. Run a 3-year TCO before you sign. Let's lock in repurchase. If you move from an on-prem app to a SaaS product, who patches it? Recall Part 2. In SaaS, everything from the hypervisor up to the application is the provider's problem. You just log in and use it. Retire means actively shutting down applications that nobody needs. The AWS Large Migration Guide confirms this shrinks your overall migration scope. Fewer servers to move, fewer licenses to pay. Discovery and assessment tools can help surface underutilized servers. Then you pull the plug, carefully, after confirming no hidden dependencies. During a portfolio assessment, you discover a legacy reporting tool running on an old VM. It's used by a handful of employees once a month to generate a report that ends up ignored. The VM costs the company a couple $100 a month plus an annual support contract. A quiet drain of several $1,000s a year. After confirming no critical process depends on it, you retire the tool. This exact scenario shows up in cloud migration interviews. What do you do with a little-used application that keeps costing money? The answer: retire after a dependency check. You pull the plug on an old server, and suddenly the payroll batch fails, because it relied on a dusty lookup table living there. That's the retire nightmare. Before decommissioning anything, build a dependency map using your discovery tool. Azure Migrate, for example, can visualize which servers communicate with each other. A dependency graph isn't optional. It's what keeps payroll running. Retain is the deliberate decision to keep a workload on-premises because moving it isn't feasible right now. You might retain an app if the vendor is planning to release a SaaS version soon, or if a compliance rule keeps it in-country. Stamping Keep On-Prem isn't giving up. It's a scheduled revisit. A precision manufacturer runs computer numerical control, CNC machines, computer-controlled equipment for automated precision manufacturing, controlled by a legacy application that depends on a custom PCI card. Supporting that hardware in a typical cloud VM is problematic. The app is critical, production stops without it. They retain it on-prem and schedule a full control system refresh in 2 years when the machines are replaced. Retain is the correct call. Moving it could break the factory floor, and the business can't afford that. Let's lock that in with a quick checkpoint. You've got a legacy server on the factory floor that no one directly logs into, but it still sends monthly batch files to accounting. Do you retire it or retain it? Pause and think. Map all dependencies. If any critical process still relies on it, you retain the server until you can migrate that function. Once no dependency remains, then retire it. You've learned all 6 strategies. One last checkpoint. An old server, no logins for 2 years. Retire or retain. First, dependency check to confirm nothing breaks, then retire it. And remember, every idle server is an unnecessary attack surface. Retiring strengthens your security posture. Now that you've seen all 6 strategies, here's how experienced architects actually think. They don't start with technology, they start with questions. Is the application still valuable to the business? If not, retire it. If the business still needs it, can we replace it with SaaS? If yes, repurchase. If it must remain custom-built, can we move it quickly with minimal changes? If yes, rehost. Would small cloud optimizations reduce maintenance? Choose Replatform. Does the application need major scalability, resilience, or modernization? Then Refactor. And if technical, regulatory, or business constraints make migration impractical today, retain it and revisit the decision later. Notice the pattern. Every decision starts with business requirements, not cloud technology. That's exactly how enterprise cloud architects approach migration planning. AWS's 7 Rs adds Relocate. Think of it as a data center level lift and shift. In some cases, you can move your entire virtualized environment to VMware Cloud on AWS with minimal reconfiguration, avoiding manual IP readdressing and large-scale refactoring. It's the masterstroke for massive estates where replatforming every individual VM would take years. You essentially forklift your virtual data center into the cloud, then modernize at your own pace. One of the most expensive mistakes in cloud migration happens before the first server ever moves. Skipping discovery. Imagine migrating 500 virtual machines only to discover that 80 of them haven't been used in over a year. Or worse. You migrate an application server but forget the licensing server it quietly depends on. Suddenly, production stops. Discovery tools solve this problem. They identify server inventory, performance trends, application dependencies, operating systems, network communication, cloud readiness, estimated migration costs. Think of discovery as getting X-rays before surgery. Without it, you're making critical decisions without seeing the whole picture. Using a cloud migration discovery tool, you start by deploying a discovery appliance to scan on-premises environments. Within hours, you can see an inventory of servers with basic configurations. Dependency mapping visualizes communication paths between servers, helping you decide which move together. The tool provides migration readiness insights and cost estimates to guide your strategy. For a pure rehost, One of the fastest tools is AWS Application Migration Service, or MGN. But before you kick off, run a 3-year TCO analysis with AWS Pricing Calculator. You don't want to replicate a server that costs more in the cloud. Once the numbers check out, this single CLI command triggers continuous replication to AWS. The source server ID came straight from your MGN console after installing the replication agent, not typed from memory. Behind the scenes, MGN takes incremental snapshots, syncs the data to staging area subnets, and automatically converts the disks into bootable AMIs. The bill is driven by instance type and storage, so keep an eye on the TCO math. One final checkpoint before we wrap. How can you avoid the biggest money pit in cloud migration? Pause. The answer is, run cost estimates with cloud pricing calculators and base them on real data from discovery scans. Otherwise, you risk moving workloads that will cost more in the cloud than they did on-prem. Let's finish with the 5 mistakes that repeatedly derail cloud migrations. Number 1. Treating every application the same. Every application deserves its own migration strategy. Number 2. Skipping dependency analysis. Applications almost never operate alone. One forgotten dependency can create hours of downtime. Number 3. Ignoring total cost of ownership. The cheapest migration today may become the most expensive environment to operate 3 years from now. Number 4. Migrating unused applications. If nobody uses it, don't migrate it. Retire it. And number 5. Thinking cloud migration is the finish line. Migration is only the beginning. The real value comes from continuous optimization, right-sizing workloads, modernizing applications, improving security, and reducing operational costs over time. Successful organizations don't just move to the cloud, they continuously improve once they get there. Here's the framework I want you to remember after this video. Ask these questions in order. Does the business still need the application? If not, retire. If yes, can a SaaS product replace it? If yes, repurchase. If not, can it move with minimal changes? Choose Rehost. Would a few cloud services significantly reduce maintenance? Choose Replatform. Does it need major redesign for scalability, resilience, or long-term cost savings? Choose Refactor. And if the application simply isn't ready today, retain it until the timing is right. You don't have to memorize 6 definitions. Remember the decision process. That's how cloud architects think. If you walk away with 3 things, make it these. 1. The 6 R's prevent you from making one blanket decision for your entire portfolio. 2. If you don't do a proper assessment with discovery tools and a TCO calculator, you're leaving significant money on the table. Cloud cost surprises are expensive. 3. Migrate fast with Rehost or Replatform to get into the cloud, then modernize the pieces that actually deliver revenue. That's how you turn a rushed migration into a long-term win. Before you move on, do this one thing. Open the AWS well-architected tool. Check the current pricing and availability, and run a review on a single workload. It helps identify potential security gaps, cost anomalies, and reliability risks. That way, when we dive into the shared responsibility model in the next video, you'll already see where your own gaps live. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. You've got the 6 R's now. Quick gut check. If your company uses an old internal wiki that a handful of people access, which strategy would you pick? Drop it in the comments. I'll jump in and answer a few. Like this video and subscribe for more no-fluff IT career content. And check the description for a free migration checklist that pairs these strategies with a readiness scorecard. See you in the next one. Remember, careers aren't built by watching videos. They're built by applying what you learn. Pick one thing from today's lesson, build it, document it, and share it. That's how you get hired. Thanks for watching Hired in IT, where we're turning IT knowledge into career opportunities.